5 of President B rental vehicles were smoked by plasmafire directed energy weapons. On November 29th, I believe it was, a little over 90 days ago. There's a good chance that's why they put my channel on restriction, because I'm the only one that can see it and I'm willing to say it. The Secret Service rented 5 vehicles, and after they returned them, hours later, all 5 of the ones that the Secret Service rented went up in flames, but only under the hood. The rest of the vehicles are still intact. This is how directed energy works, plasma fire works. It comes in contact with the engine block. I've said this many times. All of the vehicles that were hit with this directed energy look the same. Notice the hood is missing. Notice the engine block is missing. I will show you some of the headlines and show you some reporting that was done on this story. Tucker Carlson covered it of Fox News. So did Jesse Water. So did a couple of newspapers. And the only reason they were forced to cover it was because it happened in the public sector. The powers that be behind these directed energy weapons that struck out at the supposedly most powerful man in the world, the U.S. Pres, and this message was not delivered to him, that we can reach out and touch you anytime, anywhere. It was meant to reach the American people. Because if they smoked every single Secret Service vehicle in a garage that's owned by the Secret Service somewhere, we would have never heard about it. The only reason we heard about this was because it was rented from a public rental facility, Hertz Rental Car, and returned to the public airport and happened there. This message was meant to reach the general public. And I'll discuss more about what that message was. It's an abusive, codependent relationship. The government is your caregiver and your primary caregiver and your protector and your provider, and they are also your abuser. And when a woman is in an unhealthy codependent relationship with a man, she feels intimidated to say anything against him or disobey him until there is a higher power that can restrain him. And then she's willing to separate from him and make the changes she needs to make in her life, but only once someone more powerful than him overthrows him, subdues him, restrains him. And that was the message that was attempted to be put out there to the general public. The powers that be of the establishment, the institution that you normally think of, like the Secret Service, are nothing. They are powerless compared to the new sheriff in town. The only power that they wield is control over the hearts and minds of the public that they hold as hostages. And before this jailbreak happens, there's been an attempt to try to extract people in the process. But they will defend their captor. They will defend their slave master. That's what this message was about. On with the reporting of the plasma-fired Secret Service vehicles, and we will talk more about that understanding in a future video. Notice the similarity. The missing hood, right? The missing hood, the missing engine block, missing hood. I'm going to show you that some of these recent fires that we've been having all over the country, this happened 90 days ago. In recent weeks, people are starting to figure out all these fires, all these explosions, all these train derailments are not coincidence. There is a coordinated effort here. This is intentional. There is zero chance that these 5 Secret Service vehicles that were ignited hours after being returned by the Secret Service, and they were the only cars on the lot that burned. There is zero chance that it was not intentional. No logical, reasonable, or rational person could even entertain the notion that this was not intentional. This should have been the leading headline, wall-to-wall coverage, and there hasn't been a word of it since the day that it happened. Jesse Waters and Tucker Carlson reported on it. One of them gave it about a 1-minute segment, and the other one gave it a 2 or 3 minute segment, and no one's heard a word about it since. This is our president being attacked in our homeland. Yet, You ask 100 people on the street, what do you think about the 5 Secret Service vehicles that got attacked and struck? 100 of those 100 people will not even know what you're talking about. Again, notice the similarities. The missing hood, the missing engine block. And only on the front of the car. See, now Jesse Waters makes note of that. He said, how can all of these cars only burn in the front? And if they were parked and the engine wasn't running, how could the engine catch fire? This is the remnants of plasma fire that I have been speaking of for years now. That just like a microwave energy gravitates toward the densest piece of material. We'll go over that here in a minute, how the Athena laser by Lockheed Martin demonstrates exactly that it connects with the engine block. Because it's the densest part, just like when you put a potato and a bread roll in a microwave, you pull them out after 1 minute and the potato is much hotter than the potato is much hotter than the bread roll because it is denser and more of the microwave energy draws toward the densest piece. This is also why in the forest fires, you will have a very dense log burning right next to flammable, highly flammable leaves and weeds. This type of fire works exactly in reverse. It burns from the inside out and the densest piece of materials first, leaving the less dense leaves and weeds. Some of these images may be repeats, but that's okay. But you can see the similarity on all of them. They all just burned under the hood. The rest of the entire vehicle is untouched. See the headline, Biden's Secret Service vehicles. Service rental vehicles burst into flames after he left his Nantucket vacation. The New York Post covered it. I will leave links in the description and in the pinned comment to some of this news coverage, including Jesse Waters and Tucker Carlson, who covered this story, as well as the New York Post and others. And there wasn't a word about it ever since. They could use this just like September 11th to say we were attacked in our homeland. As a problem, reaction, solution, Hegelian dialectic, we got to go after those who did this because there's no chance this wasn't intentionally perpetrated. But they don't want you knowing about this for the same reason they've said nothing about the hundreds of plasma fires that have been happening all over the world. Because they want to keep you under that spell, and this has an opportunity to release you from that mind control. But I'll try not to get too deep into that. In this video, we're just going to cover the plasma-fired Secret Service vehicles and some of the other fires recently that have been demonstrating the same exact effect. The hood is missing. The glass is completely melted out. Looks like the tire was once right here and the rim melted. Oh. You can see clear back to the firewall. Here and here. Where the engine once was, there is a big void. And this is supposedly at a coke plant that caught fire recently. Let me show you some of the others. And this is by Carol from Never Lose Truth, who has covered the plasma fire phenomenon on my channel in about 3 or 4 different videos. She has shown the plasma fire. And that's why she made note that the car is melted. Also notice the tree behind it is unburned. And so that image you just saw and a couple more that you're about to see is from this video by Never Lose Truth 3 Kafka. Kafka. I don't know what that part stands for. But Carol over at Never Lose Truth has covered the plasma fire phenomenon in at least 3 or 4 different videos. She's used my coverage and my content in order to show her audience what's happening. My point is, what's going on in Ohio? Coke plant explosion and an apartment building explodes. People are starting to catch on about these fires and figuring out that they're not random. Really? Your first clue wasn't when the Secret Service lost 5 rental cars? Nope, they're still in the dark, but they won't be for long. There's a rude awakening coming down the pike. This is also an image from that video by Carol at Never Lose Truth. In fact, this is the same Z71 right there, where that guy was standing in front of. I saw that. That's the same truck that's missing its engine block. It's also missing all 4 doors. You can see the Z71 just over his shoulder. Right there, Z71. This is the same truck that's missing its engine, is also missing all 4 doors. How does fire burn the doors more extensively than the rest of the vehicle? This is a different kind of fire than anyone's ever seen. Fire doesn't do that. Notice the similarities between that truck and the missing engine block and the missing doors and the missing hood. The hood on that truck was completely gone. There is no hood on that truck. Much like the Secret Service vehicles. Rental vehicles. By the way, the investigation on the Secret Service vehicles, the Secret Service is not investigating. They're leaving it up to the airport and Hertz rental car to investigate. I will show you the report. I would be a better investigator for all of this. Notice the main fire of the Coke or the apartment complex. I'm not sure if this was the Coke plant or the apartment complex. The unburned wood right here and the fried cars right here. If this is the main fire, how does it travel over here and burn those cars without burning the wood in between? That is the unburnt wood that I speak of as they're trying to put out the main fire. The Nantucket Current was the first person to report on this and get the closed circuit television video of these cars combusting. There is no sleeper cells being activated to sneak in there and put a can of gas or a match or a bomb. This is high-tech stuff no one's ever seen before. The Secret Service rented 5 vehicles from Hertz to carry the president and his family. All 5 of them caught fire in the parking lot after he returned them. No other cars caught fire. Only those, and all 5 of the ones that he rented. Here's where they try and start watering it down and using some weasel words for wiggle room. The vehicles that caught fire within a day of being returned, within hours after being returned, were among a number that were rented by the Secret Service. Oh, those 5 were among a number, so there must have been a larger number, like more than 5? No, those 5 were among the 5 that they rented. Every single one they rented, and they imply through this weasel wording that, oh, well, that was just a few of them. There were others that were rented that weren't. They were among a number that were rented by the Secret Service? Well, yeah, that number was 5, and these 5 were among that number. The vehicles were rented from Hertz and returned after the Secret Service was done with them, agency spokesman told NBC News. Hertz is investigating the fire, and the Secret Service is not involved and doesn't have any information on what might have started the fires. So the Secret Service is not going to conduct their investigation, so you cannot submit a Freedom of Information Act FOIA request and ask what they discovered, because they're not even going to look into it. They're going to leave it up to Hertz Rental Car and the airport to investigate. Here, the New York Post is a little bit more honest. The Secret Service rented 5 vehicles from Hertz to carry the president and his family, and all 5 of them caught fire in the parking lot. Well, they were just among a number that were rented. No, every single one that was rented caught fire. Footage shows firefighters spraying down the smoldering remains of one vehicle's engine block. The cause of the fire is currently unknown, and Fox News reached out to the White House for information, but it did not immediately respond. Well, here we are now, over 90 days later. Not a word. We'll talk more about that in another video. Just really let it linger. The hood is missing. The fenders are missing. The engine block is missing. All 5 of these cars were struck exactly the same. Not a single one of them had the cab burn, only under the hood of all 5 cars. There's a new sheriff in town, and he can overpower the powers that be very easily. This was not a message directed at them, that we know where you are and we can reach out and touch you and take you at any time. They know that. The kingdom of heaven is near, and God's army is at the perimeter. That is why it says in the Bible, the devil knows his time is short, so he runs roughshod all over the face of the earth in those final days. These people know there's a new sheriff in town, and you are powerless in the presence of this new power, a higher power, as they say. This message was meant to get out to the public, the slaves that are held hostage, that are kept captive in this abusive, codependent relationship with their government, to let you know there's a new sheriff in town, and you don't have to worry about that abuser that you are currently under a Stockholm syndrome with, having fallen in love with your captor. Because as soon as it's time to pay the price, each and every person that says, "Oh, I love me some America, red, white, and blue, freedom and liberty," is going to immediately acknowledge, "Oh no, I was their slave. Until then, we pretend they are our public servants and we tell them what to do," until it's time to be held accountable. Because in a slave master situation, the servants of the slave master do whatever the slave master tells them to do. Therefore, the slave master is responsible for whatever his servants do. Then that means that you, the American people, are responsible for everything done to Syria, Libya, Egypt, Iraq, Afghanistan over the past 20 years. Because those are your public servants and you sent them to do that. They serve you. They do what you tell them to, right? And that is when immediately every freedom-loving, flag-waving, Bible-thumping, gun-toting, God-fearing, flag-waving American will say, "Oh, no, I was powerless to tell the government what to do. They tell me what to do. I have no control over them. I am their slave. They are the master," and they are relying on the obvious, glaring truth of that to alleviate them from responsibility of the consequences of what has been done in their name with their taxpayer dollars. They think, well, no one could possibly ever hold me, the American Joe Blow citizen, responsible for what the American government has done because it's so glaringly obvious. I have no control over what they do. Relying on the obviousness of the true nature of the relationship you have with your government to alleviate you from responsibility of the consequences of what has been done, while you continue talking about we got freedom and liberty and we're going to go liberate another country because you're under the tyrannical dictates of Assad in Syria or Hussein in Iraq or wherever else, Mubarak in Egypt. And we need to go liberate those people and bring them the freedom that we got at the barrel of a gun, because we love our freedom. Land of the free, home of the brave, and you continue in that facade until the day that it's time to pay the price and there are consequences. And then immediately, without hesitation, each and every person will immediately point to the fact that they were powerless to control that government, that they are not our servants as we pretend and call them our public servants, that we are their servants and they are the master. This message was to show you that your captor is about to be overpowered and overthrown. And just like a woman who will not speak against her abusive husband until the police have detained him and locked him away and confined him and restricted him and overpowered him, then she will acknowledge the truth of the nature of her relationship with her abusive husband or boyfriend. Until then, she will not disobey him. She will not acknowledge the truth of the nature of her relationship with him. Only once a more powerful character has entered the scene and entered into the equation is she able to think for herself again. Otherwise, she will not disobey. The American people are the abused, captive, hostage in this relationship. And the new sheriff in town can overthrow the powers that be very easily. The only power that those institutions have is over the hearts and minds of the people that they hold hostage. And like I've said for a long time, we're on something like Jim Jones Island, indoctrinated into a cult. And there are angels on the sideline again, as sung by Tool. And I've been working on a jailbreak, as sang by AWOL Nation. That's why there is a delicate extraction process, because it would look like an invading force. If you already acknowledge that you are enslaved, you can recognize that you have the opportunity to be liberated and freed. But people seem to pretend as if they're already free. Therefore, anyone who breaches the perimeter of our island here must be here to enslave us. No, you're already enslaved. Mentally and emotionally. And until someone overpowers your slave master, you will not acknowledge that, you will not admit that, you will pretend that you are free. There are none more so enslaved than those who falsely believe they are free. But it's time to pay the Pied Piper real soon. And this was an attempt to get a message through to the American people, not to the government, not to the institutions of power and authority, not to the Secret Service and the president that, hey man, we can reach out and touch you at any time, anywhere, we got you. You're powerless in our presence. They already know that. They know their time is short, and that's why they run rampant over the face of the earth in those last days. This was not a message directed and delivered to the service or to the press. This was a message that was attempted to be communicated to the American people because they rented it from a public facility, Hertz rental car. And there are average people there. How they even found out that these were rented by the Secret Service is a stroke of luck, because it's all supposed to be a big secret, right? And if these cars were owned by the Secret Service, you would never hear a word about it. That's why they did this, is because these were just given by the Secret Service back to the public company, and that this story might get out to the general public. The powers that be and the institutions do not want you knowing about this. They do not want you knowing that there is anyone that could challenge their power. They don't want you knowing that there is a force, a higher power that is an adversary of the current institutions. They want you thinking that the President of the United States is the most powerful person on the face of the earth. Obviously not. He just got bitch slapped. And it was right in front of all of you, so you could see it. So you might be able to disobey. So you might take that offer and come on, baby, take a chance with us and meet me at the back of the blue bus, or it hurts to set you free, but you'll never follow me. Can you picture what will be so limitless and free when you're desperately in need of some stranger's hand in a desperate land? And if the offer is shunned, then you might as well be walking on the sun. So don't delay, act now, supplies are running out. Allow if you're still alive, 6 to 8 years to arrive. And if you follow, there may be a tomorrow. But if the offer is shunned, you might as well be walking on the sun. Because there is a cosmic egg timer that's about to be up. And when this whole world goes up, it will be celestialized, as Joseph Smith once said, referring to all planets that end up giving off light just like the sun. That Earth will be celestialized and every planet in its due process is put through the same process. My point is, we're at the end of the road. That egg timer is about up, and eventually, not long before the final proceedings. Up until then, the slave masters on this plantation keep you hostage, keep you in the dark, and they are culling you because they know that their time is short. Just like someone takes a plane hostage, they're willing to kill everyone on board before they will allow those people to be set free and allow themselves to be enslaved. If they know the authorities are coming, they are willing to take down the whole ship. This ship of planet Earth has been hijacked, and those pirates have taken all the people hostage. And they are about to get their doors kicked in and removed from power. And in the process, they are willing to take all the hostages with them. I'll calm down here for a second. The only way I know about these 5 Secret Service vehicles, because Salty Cracker, right there, saltmustflow.com, he did a video. I don't watch Jesse Waters or Tucker Carlson or Fox News. Salty Cracker covered the story when it happened, and he has since put that video on private, as you can see. Why did he do that? I'm about to recite some of what Jesse Waters says, and their title, Hopefully Biden Bought the Hertz Vehicle Insurance. Notice it's 1 minute 53 seconds long. That's the extent of the coverage that this incident received. He says that on this vacation, they left on Sunday, and hours later, boom, not the next day, not a day after, hours after he returned those rental vehicles. Boom, boom, they all burst into flames. Hopefully this will be allowed without copyright infringement. If not, I'll just clip it off the end. I just wanted to show you all of the cars look exactly the same. In his part about we have some questions, he says, look at the damage. Only the front of the cars were burned up? He says, and plus if these cars weren't started, how could the engine catch on fire and hit all 5 of his rental vehicles? And then he says, all right, let's say it didn't happen randomly. If they didn't just ignite on their own, then who did it? Let's posit the question that it didn't happen randomly. Like I said already in this video, there is no logical, reasonable, or rational possibility that it was not intentional. Zero. But we're still pretending as if, okay, let's just ask if maybe it wasn't random. To even entertain the idea that it was random is insane. And remember the Department of Defense acknowledging that Russia and China have these weapons, these directed energy weapons that are capable of producing long-range fires.
Fires have spawned a truly weird new conspiracy theory that lasers from space are actually causing the fires. Directed energy weapons do.
That was in my very last video that I made. And those words came out of Salty Cracker's mouth. He was making it as if Jill Biden told him, get the space lasers. We need to destroy some evidence. But obviously no evidence in those cars was destroyed. Nothing in the cab was destroyed. Anyway.
But this is supposedly false.
Our near-peer rivals, China and Russia, seek to erode our long-standing dominance in air power through long-range fires, anti-axis aerial denial systems, and other asymmetric capabilities designed to counter our strengths.
So not a conspiracy after all. Mark Esper, the Secretary of Defense of the United States, actually declared that Russia and China have satellites that can actually cause fires.
China and Russia seek to erode our long-standing dominance in air power through long-range fires.
He also confirms that they have actually militarized space, weaponized it, and they actually have DUWs that can actually cause the fires and do all this kind of stuff.
Meanwhile, in space, Moscow and Beijing have turned a once peaceful arena into a warfighting domain. They have weaponized space through killer satellites, directed energy weapons, and more in an effort to exploit our systems and chip away at our military advantage.
A new conspiracy theory? Yeah, okay. Yeah, this stuff's real. He actually confirmed it. This is apparently one of these